I was diagnosed with double cancer, breast cancer and thyroid cancer at the same time. And we have to break that mindset that we have all the answers. Is that stress is a pretty powerful thing. Those 18 years while the kids are at home, you're going to blink twice and they're gone. You got promoted because you were good at doing tasks. Now you're up here and you have to develop people and no one taught you how to do it. You got promoted because you were good at doing tasks. Now you're up here and you have to develop people and no one taught you how to do it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Experts podcast. Today, we welcome Rhonda Parmer. She is a remarkable leader who has served 3 decades in the public education sector, having served as an associate superintendent principal. Rhonda has navigated the intense pressures of high stakes leadership whilst finding ways to navigate and without sacrificing her well-being. Today, she dedicates her expertise to coaching women executives, helping them to build lasting confidence, avoid burnout, and achieve goals through the ease strategies. Get ready for an inspiring conversation with Rhonda Parmer with great insights to building resilience and also living a balanced life without high stakes pressures of the demanding roles. Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you. I know we're going to leave your audience with something they can take immediately to start putting in place to help them manage their job and still feel like they're living their lives.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, I'm so excited. So, the first question I want to ask you, what was the toughest leadership challenge you had faced once in your position as an associate superintendent principal? And how did those challenges shape your coaching philosophy today?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. So, just a quick recap. I started as a substitute teacher in public education while I finished my degree, worked up to teacher, then teacher coach or peer coach, assistant principal, principal, and then central office where as an associate superintendent. And probably my biggest lesson came as a principal, a campus principal. During my first year, and I'll just say this real quickly, up until my first year of principal, I just knew I was going to become principal. So everything I did was over the top, trying to prove myself, all of those things that come in with, just a little bit of competition. I grew up in a house of with 4 boys, so I felt like I always had to prove myself. And that carried on through my career. And then my first year as principal, even though I was so excited, I knew I had arrived, I'm there. I was diagnosed with double cancer, breast cancer and thyroid cancer at the same time. And so what got me to become a principal, which was working hard, burning the candle at both ends, feeling like I was by myself doing everything, came to a complete stop. And I had to literally practice in the living room with my husband, telling people I needed help. And I had to practice receiving help because that was not in my makeup at that point. But if you listen to any of the leadership gurus out there, one thing that Simon Sinek says is that when he talks about 5 great attributes of a leader, one of them is learning how to accept and ask for help. And it's such a dichotomy because you're the leader. So we feel as the leaders, we feel people are expecting us to know everything, be able to do everything. If you're already at this point, you must have already had experience doing all of these things. And it's just simply not true. And we have to break that mindset that we have all the answers. We're the leader because we help people find answers. So that shaped the way I led for the rest of my career, where I really tried to protect people's health and well-being. And if I could see them working too many hours, I try to tell them, look, that's not a badge of honor. There's something out of alignment here. You're either taking on too much or you're micromanaging or you haven't learned how to delegate. So let's figure out what's going on, because there's no reason that anybody should have to work 13, 14, 15 hours constantly. If a project's coming up or there's a meeting, a big event, yes, occasionally, but not constantly. You're going to miss your whole life.
Mm-hmm. And that is so true. There is that dichotomy that as women, we want to do it all because we're the carers. We take care of the family whilst running a high stakes, high pressured business. That we feel we want to do it all. If we don't do it all, we could not only do we let ourselves down, but I think that's the most important point that we may let ourselves down because we've not achieved what we want to achieve. So there is
Mhm.
that dichotomy. 100%, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we just have to get back into reality. We're not superheroes in that regard where we can stop time and do everything. So we just have to look at systems, evaluate our
Mhm.
people, where are the strengths of others, and how can we really work together and in alignment with our values of our organization and our personal values.
Right.
And um, that's what I help people realize is that just exactly like you said. I mean, they have to take care of things at home. That's a given. We can't let our children not be supervised or eat or have clean clothes or whatever. But what systems can we put in place there too? I mean, once kids get a certain age, we can create systems. My mom put in a wonderful system. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but looking back, she stuck a piece of paper on the refrigerator on Saturday morning and had all the chores for the week and a little dollar value. And some of them were only a quarter back then, but some of them were $2 or $3 or $4 or $10 if it was mowing the yard. And so there were five of us all together. So if you woke up early on Saturday and you got over there and put your name on the things that you were going to do, you would only maybe have to do one thing to get the most amount of money. So there are
Mhm.
things that we can teach families at home so that you're running your home as efficiently as you are your organization. And then you're not burning out. That's what I
Right.
really want to make sure doesn't happen. And as I mentioned, I I don't know everything medically, I don't know, but there were no genes in my family for breast cancer or thyroid cancer. But what I've learned since then is that stress is a pretty powerful thing. And even if you in your head don't feel stress because you say, "Oh, I'm doing it. I'm fine. I'm checking all these things off the list." Your body feels it. And your body releases certain chemicals and different things happen physiologically that we have to be aware of. And if one good thing did come out of the COVID era, it is sort of a better self-reflection of how am I doing physically, how am I doing mentally and spiritually, and those kinds of things matter. I mean, we're not just machines here to just make a bunch of money, even though that's powerful and that's critical because if you're running an organization, you're also caring for all those people who are helping you run that
Right.
organization.
Right.
But that's not everything. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't even do that.
Exactly. Exactly. 100%. I really agree with that. And I had a guest on my podcast, who talked about standards. So having the SOPs, not only in your business, but that also translates in your personal life, with your children. And he talked about, if your children, if the curfew is 10 p.m., but they come at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m., but you don't say anything as a parent, that's a standard.
Exactly.
So I just loved what, he shared with us. But it is so true, having standards, having the SOPs in business, but in life as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
One other tip, I mean, just kind of going along with that, a simple tip. So one is just whatever chores need to be done, write them on a sheet of paper, and they're the same thing. You can print it in your computer, print out names. I mean, it's hard if you only have one child, but it doesn't have to just be the children. What are the adults going to do?
Right. Mhm.
But anyway, so that's one. What's the chore list, and is there a little allowance next to it, or is this just what's expected if you're going to be part of our family? And then the other one is a monthly calendar. So um, everybody combines their events onto one calendar so everybody can see. And that kind of goes along with my leadership technique of blocks, blocks, clocks, and socks. I talk about this a lot. It's not just a cutesy little saying. Blocking out time on your calendar at work, you need to do that so people don't interrupt you during certain times of the day, but also blocking off time at home. So you intentionally spend time with your family, not just sit at the table while they're there, but you're on your phone and they're on theirs. Intentional time together. And if people really think about it, those 18 years while the kids are at home, you're going to blink twice and they're gone. And
True.
I read a statistic the other day that's 85% of the time that you'll ever spend with your children, because after that they go to college, they get married, they have their own families, and it's just, some weekends and most holidays if you're lucky. And so we really need to intentionally use that time to truly raise the kids to match our values, or try, or give them choices, and at least let them see a good model and even how to work. So anyway, it just kind of all goes hand in hand.
It sure
I'm getting
does.
a little off topic, but it does
No, but
help.
it sure does. No, thank you for the insights. It really does. Everything goes hand in hand. How we do one is in how we do the other, and it's how we train our kids or how you train your teams to be more efficient.
Yes, exactly. Everything that people learn through going through coaching with me is applicable for work or home.
Mhm.
That's so nice.
Absolutely. In the high pressure roles, what would you say, Rhonda, that you would recommend leaders to stay grounded when everything feels, it kind of feels overwhelmed? What would you say to leadership, leaders out there that want to do it all, but they feel overwhelmed, and how can they do it all?
Okay, that's a great lead-in question to the whole the whole strategy. So, I've been working with a gentleman at a bank lately, and it's exactly what you just mentioned. He has made his way up through the banking fields from teller to teller manager, then was loan officer. Now he's executive director of all the loan officers. Well, through all of these ranks, he learned some great skills,
Mhm.
and he was very structured and very linear and able to get tasks complete, and was recognized for that and was able to get promoted. But the higher up that you're promoted, the more people that you're over.
Mhm.
And so if during those times they're not trained in how to engage with the people, then it makes it hard, and they get overwhelmed really fast, really quickly, because they rely on what got them there. And that is checking off the list, doing these tasks, going through this linear list, when really all of these things that are tasks, processes, pretty much should be delegated out. And now, as the leader, you're developing the people to be able to do that, and also be the ones who will come behind you once you leave. So how do we handle that? The first is just awareness, and the awareness of that's happening. Are they taking on too much, or are they scared? What's the trust issue? Is it the trust issue with themselves? They don't trust themselves to let go of this, or they
Mhm.
don't trust the person who's supposed to be taking over. Either way, that's a leadership issue that needs to be addressed. And so that awareness. So if I do that through a series of questions and just try to drill down how how is that person working, and what is the thing that's overwhelming? But it boils down to what I people have a lot of strategies for this, but I have this strategy that is alignment. And I'm trying to, what I call, put out an alignment revolution. Because even though there are people problems, what people say, oh, well, if it just weren't for the people, but I ask them to look at it differently. There's good in everyone. So what
Mhm.
is the God-given talent or the gift or the genius of this person? And how can we harness it to benefit our whole team? So even though, Rhonda might have been hired as the HR director, and let me say your name right, Alka.
Alka, yes. Uh-huh.
Alka was hired over communications and marketing. Once we're in a team project or we're working on something and we can find that Alka is really the one with the great ideas, and she can help people see the end, and she's kind of a encourager and a pusher, then we let her do those things because it's not exhausting to her. But with Rhonda is more of a task person, and hey, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Then let her do it. It
Mhm.
doesn't
Right.
matter what your role is. When we get to those times where we're trying to work as a team, we have to find out what makes people tick. And I'll just give you an example in education. Um, so the last 12 years in education, I supervised principals. And many, many times I would hear from board members, community members, or people even higher than me, superintendent, et cetera, telling me, just go in there and get rid of that principal. And that used to just break my heart. Oh my gosh, this is a human being. They have a family. They've been here 20 years. Okay, the school is not having the highest rankings, but let's go in and figure out what's going on. And what you find most of the time with the principals who are underperforming, most of the time they're just doing too many things. And it's exactly what you said, they're overwhelmed. Why are you overwhelmed? Well, you're making copies. No way should you be doing that. I didn't pay my tax dollars for the principal to make copies unless somebody's in a bind. It's a once in a while thing. Oh, they didn't get copied. Now you're in the middle of a lesson. Yes, I'll go make those
Mhm.
copies so you can stay with your kids, but not on a routine basis. The principal is doing lunch duty. I want a principal in the cafeteria every once in a while, but not where it depends on them, because what happens if they have to go to a meeting or whatever? Then the cafeteria falls apart. Okay. Or the principal is, get this one, this is for real, mowing the lawn.
Mowing
No,
the lawn. I didn't know that was in the job title.
me neither. But they like doing it because it's a riding lawnmower. Or collecting money for the book fair, or doing receipts or whatever. None of those tasks should be done by the principal. So when a principal says, "Oh man, I'm working 14 hours, 13 or 14 hours a day," okay, tell me what you're doing. And you find out real quick they're doing the wrong thing. So they're not they're not they're not bad people. They're good people. They're just misaligned. Their actions are not really aligned with, like you said, the job description, number one, but even more so than that, the intuitive job description of a principal to hire the great people and then support them so they can have great impact on students, and then develop them if they have dips in their performance. And so what I found when they're against all the schools that were underperforming, it was principals either doing too much or not trusting the people. So they wouldn't give tasks away, not because they didn't want to, they wanted to, but they didn't feel they could trust. And so once we make that shift of, okay, but you're the leader, you're in charge of developing them. So let's back up a step, because if you keep doing everything, you're robbing them of their learning. They're never going to get promoted if they don't understand this, and you're the one charged to develop them. So I found that to be, as soon as I retired from education, I just started looking for those patterns, and it is across every type of industry, whether it's civic, nonprofit, industrial, executive. I mean, that philosophy remains, and it's just a function of how we got promoted. You got promoted because you were good at doing tasks. Now you're up here and you have to develop people, and no one taught you how to do it.
Right. And I just want to go back. You talked about, each individual having specific roles. We talked about the roles, and so what came to mind is knowing the strengths and weaknesses, and as working as a team. But even at working as a team, you have your individual strengths, I have my strengths or weaknesses, but how we can blend those together. And I think that's so important, because working as a team really makes a huge difference how the organization is run, how the home is run. So working as a team
Mhm.
really goes a long way too. And
So the way we get that done is because you're right when you said, everybody has their role, to prevent people from working in silos, because you are hired by this job description. In a bank, for instance, the executive director over loans is not going to be doing the same thing as the executive director, the CFO. They don't have the same kind of tasks, but they do have the same role of developing people.
Mhm.
And on that team, even though there are point people over the certain goals, that team is the one that shares those goals, the executive goals or the nonprofit goals or whatever. So the way we set up organizations to work as a team, even if they're on different projects or completely, to prevent working in silos, is a weekly meeting. And when I bring that up to people, they just go, "Come on, man, we don't need any more meetings. We're done with meetings. We have a meeting up to here." But what's in those meetings? What meetings are you having? What's getting done or not done? And how can we exchange that time for a powerful meeting? Because even if, let's say, I'm over HR and you're over communications, I've been in HR my whole career, and I've been kind of finding what's successful in there, but I kind of run out of innovation. After about 3 to 5 years, you run out of innovation because you've got your pattern. This is what I do. This is what works. But you being over marketing or communication, you might just say, "Hey, have you thought about whatever?"
Right.
In a team who's focused on the same goals, innovation comes from people who are not in the daily grind of it. So a short weekly meeting, just what are your projects and what are you working on? Does anybody have anything to add to that? It's not to throw them off course, and you got to be careful. And I have some ways to make sure that doesn't happen, because there's nothing worse than, let's say you and I are we're working on a project, and we're 90% done with it, and then here comes Joe. "Hey, have y'all thought about whatever?" "No, we'll talk about that next year," or whatever, because we're 90% done and it's due in 3 days. So we're not changing right now. But thank you. We should have had that a few weeks ago. And if you have that structure of the weekly meeting, then part of the weekly meeting is I have a 3-month look ahead a 3-week look ahead and a 3-day look ahead. So that prevents somebody from coming in and saying, 2 days before it's done, you should have thought about whatever. But it's very structured and simple and quick. It's designed to just help with innovation and keep people out of their silo. And they have you have to train them in that this is a development, this is a people development, and we get innovation from others because once you get your system, it's just human nature. It's like in schools, they have laminated lesson plans. They know what works and they're going to use it, but we just have to overcome that.
Absolutely. You help women executives to prevent them avoiding burnout, to build confidence through the EASE strategies. Can you share with us what the acronym EASE stands for, and how does the philosophy, how did that philosophy come about, and how can our listeners benefit from that?
Absolutely. So it came about actually when I was going through those cancer treatments. So I had stage 4 thyroid cancer and stage 3 breast cancer at the same time. It took everything, I had all the treatments. So radiation, chemo, surgery, reconstruction. So it was a little over a year. And so that was my first year and going into a little bit of my second. And I have to say that, life has just a way of, I don't know, I guess making us slow down, because when I got that job as principal of that school, it was a good school. There were no real problems, but naturally, as any young person who just gets their first big leadership job, they've had all these ideas all this time. So oh, we can do this and we can do this and we can do this. And everybody's telling me, no, 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 just watch and learn for a year. And I agree with that now, but to a certain extent, I didn't agree with it at all then. I was like, no, 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 these kids don't have time for us to wait a year. We've got to get this in place now. But well, guess what? No, now you will wait a year because you're going to be out with appointments and all this. But moving on, what does this stand for? This came about from that time of, okay, how can I, I don't even hardly know these ladies yet, and a few gentlemen. How can I create a system where we have good communication, whether I'm here or not? And these kinds of the main things get done, that we're expected to do. And to this point, after that, they're on their own, and whatever they do is fine. I just got to make sure we get up to this point. So I created that system then. And so here's what it stands for. E is engage. And that means to truly figure out who all is involved, who needs to know what, and to what level. It's basically who is going to be involved in whatever process or system we put into place. And it may be at that time, to assess the strengths. So engage and assess the strengths so we can put the right people in the right spots. A stands for align. And so that is one step further than figuring out their strengths. Once you figure out their strengths, now where do they have the best leverage? So even though I might have a second grade teacher who, is a great teacher, she's also super structured and has a good vision of how a system works. So she has a great idea for dismissal. Okay. Instead of me trying to sit in my office and write up all the directions for dismissal and then hand it out like it's just coming from on high, this lady who has a good system in her head already can hey, anybody who wants to talk about dismissal, come on over. And then they all figure it out, work it out, and they put it out and they did it. It's for them. It's to make their lives easier. It's at their level. Yes, I'm responsible as a principal for dismissal, and the parents are going to come to me if it's not smooth or if it takes 45 minutes. But the teachers want to get out of there too. So anyway, you try to get the people closest to the problems to be able to come up with solutions. So that's the align. And then the S is simplify. And that's kind of what we were talking about at the very beginning of our meeting. What are the standard operating procedures? How can we make this clear to over 85%? When you say dismissal process, 85% of your people know. Or if I'm in a bank, when I say the loan application, 85% of the people know. So it's a simple, easy, communicated process that you train. It's part of your training. It becomes part of your manual, etc. And then E is empower. And this is where, as a person going through an illness, I really had to empower them. They could not wait till they could talk to me to get approval to do every little thing, because sometimes I might not have even been there. So this is where you come up with your decision-making tree. So, all right, if the topic is over, if the decision is about these three things, you make the decision on your own. We'll handle the consequences. I trust you 100%, make the decisions. If it's over these 2 or 3 topics, hey, let's just get together, get a team together, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then decide. And on this 1 or 2 is the only thing that I actually have to decide. But you put that in writing, and that is super empowering, and people can then work in autonomy. They know they've trusted. There will be mistakes. There will be people who, make the wrong decision, but that's how they learn. And nothing is really catastrophic. I mean, in medical, yes, there's some catastrophic decisions that could be made. And in others, there could be some costly mistakes. But generally, what I've found is I'm working over the last 7 years, coaching in different industries. Everybody who gets those decision-making matrices or list or whatever, they're just like, oh, finally, I feel like these handcuffs are taken off and I can just do the work I got hired to do. So that's how it came about. And then that's what it stands for. If we're talking about confidence, I do have a few little different acronyms, that go with that. But my main thing on confidence is for people to realize that confidence is a byproduct of courage. So you get confidence after you tried something, but sometimes we don't have time to do that. So we have to borrow confidence. And that's why I tell leaders, you're a people developer. So you have to infuse your own confidence into these folks before they get a chance to try anything. Then they get their own confidence. And so I talk to women, especially about, even if they don't feel like anybody on their team has confidence in them, or if they don't feel like their boss or whatever, they don't have the confidence, then who is their hero, either in business or in entertainment or even in their family? And can they borrow confidence from them? And part of this just goes along with replacement thoughts. That's one thing I teach them. So it's a self-awareness. So, oh man, I can't get up and do a board report. I can't talk to the board. I'm going to get sweaty and my face is going to get red and then my throat's going to close and I'm not going to be able to talk and I'm going to have to get a drink. And okay, stop, take a breath and say everything the opposite. Say the opposite of what you just said. I can speak to the board. I will be calm. I will have a controlled temperature. I will be able to breathe, and just rehearse it. Here's the thing that happened at, I think it's Stanford. They had 2 groups of people practicing piano. One group actually was on a piano practicing. The other was just practicing on the table in their head. And by the end of this, however long it took, they all performed the same way. So the point is, your brain and your body conform to your thoughts. And so if we can borrow confidence from others and stop ourselves from going down these little rabbit holes and practice in our head, seeing ourselves successful, then the confidence comes.
Exactly. People do talk about the visualization. They talk about the visualization, whether, as you said, you're standing, you're about to do a presentation. Some people do get nervous about it, but visualizing, athletes, they visualize before. So it is so powerful what we need to do. So let's talk about what unique obstacles do women leaders face today, and how can we turn the opportunities into growth?
Ooh, you're diving deep on me now.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, women still, as far as we have come, there are still challenges and challenges with challenges with just some people's mindset of working for a woman. I remember not too long ago, maybe 3 years ago, someone said, well, are you okay answering to a woman? It's like, I'm a woman. Of course I'm okay with that. But it made me think, okay, that's still out there. Okay, so there's the mindset of some woman is my boss. There's the mindset of nation. Well, I don't know how it is in Canada, but especially in Texas, there's still a big gap between salaries for top CEOs just because they're a woman. And some people would say, well, but they didn't have the same experience. No, you can match them up resume by resume, and they're still not. And they're still not getting the same salary or equal salary. And that is a byproduct of the 50s and 60s, where the man is the breadwinner, so he has to have a little more. That's so archaic. So the other challenge is if there are women, and this can happen on both sides, but it's traditionally more the women's role to take care of family, whether that's children in the home or if they've gone past that and they're in the stage of taking care of their parents. It's the same thing. It is a higher expectation on the women to do that. Even in a family of where you have brothers and sisters, the sisters are more, like you mentioned earlier, the caretakers. So how do we blow this up? The first thing we have to do is keep talking about it like we are. Um, and the, and that is, what was your main question about that though? If those are the main challenges, salary, expectations, and then this, I want to make sure I use the right word, but it's, I'm just saying, even though it's 2026, it's crazy to think that there are still people who don't believe that women could be the head leader, the top C-suite folks. And some of that is just still bound in the stereotypical, the women are too emotional, or they're too sensitive. And, those are good things to have. Now we're teaching men how to be self-reflective, how to be sensitive and have empathy, to how to show, emotional intelligence. So everything that they bashed women for, we're now teaching to men. So
exactly. And that's a good thing. Yes.
It is a good thing. It's funny.
A good thing. Exactly. Well, I find also with, comparing the two executives, a man and a man often gets, the same position, but a male executive gets much more higher than the woman. And I just find, like I said, I totally agree that, we're in 2026 and that should not be the case. But unfortunately, it is. It's just the way it goes. So, yeah.
So it's the same in Canada, I take it.
It is, absolutely. Absolutely, it is. But so how do you foster self-awareness that plays a breakthrough of, the glass ceiling, we just talked about it, it's a glass ceiling, a male and a woman that's having the same role. So how do you break through a male-dominated leadership spaces? How can women break through those glass ceilings?
Well, as we talked about earlier about visualization for confidence,
right?
We have to do the same thing there. And it sounds a little bit flaky when you just say that out loud. Oh, well, we have to visualize, but that's part of it. I mean, the ladies have to believe in themselves. If you think about every person you've known who has had a little self-doubt or low confidence or whatever, that it triggers them to act a little differently, to shrink back, to agree or settle or whatever. And so the balance is, how do you exert yourself without being one of those kind, the B word, without being labeled as such, because even my husband, I hate to say it, but even he said, if a woman has low self-confidence, generally men can handle being around them and help them. But if a woman is domineering and they're real courageous and they're powerful, it makes the men shrink back. So then where's the confidence? Because you certainly, let's say you have a C-suite that's balanced with men and women, and the women are confident and working hard and the men shrink back. You have a total dysfunctional team again. So breaking through that, how do we self-aware? One of the tools that I use, pretty much everything I provide is a self-reflection. So that ease formula that I mentioned earlier, let's just say we're talking about developing partnerships with, developing outside partnerships. So EASE, I have a little formula that goes with that. And the self-reflection part of it is to figure out, where are we now? So on a scale of 1 to 4, where are we in engaging with our partners? And I have all these descriptors. It's a rubric. On alignment, rate yourselves 1 to 4. Where are you? And simplifying and empowering. And then once they identify where they are, and nobody sees this, they don't have to turn it into anybody. It's not going to the board. It's not going to their boss. It's not part of their evaluation. It truly is to get where are you? What's your status right now? And then the next page, if you flip it over, or if it's in the book, you turn the page. The next page is, based on where you are, here are some coaching tips or reflective questions to help you level up. I'm going to just go to one of those examples while you're getting the next question, but then we can come back to it. But that way I can, yes. Or I can share it. I can share it, and you can put it within, you can share it with the audience. But it's just a.
Yeah, no, go ahead. If you have the tip, you can share with us.
Okay, just to give you an example of what some of the questions would be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll just go to that one, the one I was talking about with business partnerships. just so you can hear the questions.
Sure, no problem.
And I'm sorry it's taken me this long because I have so many of these, like how to have
No, that's
a
okay.
meeting. Okay, let me get back to that one on ships. I even have one ease into adulthood for teenagers.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get to that one in a minute. Okay, here we go with
I think most parents would appreciate the ease for teenagers,
ease into adulthood. It's pretty good.
right?
Okay, partnerships. Okay, so some of the questions for this one, if you, let's say you rated yourself low on empowerment on that one, then some of the pointers would be, how can you empower both sides to lead and take initiative? And what is it that you're wanting if it's a partnership? For example, if it's a bank trying to partner with a, let's say, a restaurant so they can have a promotion. How do
Mhm.
you get a win-win situation? And you have to talk about that. You know, when you go in to have a partnership, you need to have a plan. And all of these things are just part of the pre-meetings to help you have a plan. What innovative ideas can you implement that will improve this partnership? Or how will you promote leadership and ownership? And if I go all the way back to engagement, because that's kind of where you start, what are the shared goals? How can both sides connect to the community? And then what joint activities or events foster a better engagement? And
Mhm.
it's just like that. And then just for fun, I'll just go back to that ease into adulthood, just since we've been kind of talking about that too. It's for the kids, for the teenagers who are trying to finish high school or get into college, or even they've already finished college and they really haven't launched yet. Okay. So ease into adulthood. The question, what is one win or highlight from last week, either work or personal, that can spur you to feel good about yourself?
Mhm.
Who deserves a shout out this week and why in your family? And then connect as humans before doing all your tasks. So, as I mentioned earlier, at home, you might say, oh, here's all the chores for this week, but how can we connect as a family before we just start doling out chores?
Right.
What is our
Yeah.
family mantra, or what is our, what do we believe in as a family? Do we believe in eating together all three meals or whatever on the weekends, or do we believe in watching a movie together or going outside to play and throw footballs? So connect that way. That's the engagement part. And sometimes it might be up to the kids to push that. But we want the adults to model it. All right. And then for a line for the kids, what is your number one focus this week? Where are you stuck, or what do you need support with? And then helping them center on some goals as teenagers or young adults. Simplify. What roadblocks can we help remove from you for you? Do you have anything that's overcomplicated or unclear that's making you just stop? Is there anything we can automate? And so it sounds a little odd just thinking about it when you're just, hearing this auditorily, but part of the facilitation of these conversations is to have the parents and the kids think about, where is my status? Where am I right now?
Mhm.
And where do I want to be in a month or 6 months or a year? And
True.
it's the same at work.
It's the same at work. Exactly. Exactly. They both all apply. It goes hand in hand. Definitely. Many women struggle, Rhonda, with imposter syndrome when climbing up the leadership ladder. What what recommendations or what are some of the actionable steps you would recommend to build that unshakable confidence that women need to have?
This is going to sound so simple, but it is so difficult to achieve. And it is, number one, to recognize that. I remember actually having conversations with leaders in schools and in organizations, pastors, women pastors, especially, leaders of nonprofits. And I would ask them series of questions, and by their answers, you could tell they were struggling with imposter syndrome. And then when I would say that, when I would ask them finally, so do you feel like you're struggling with imposter syndrome? So many of them didn't even know what that meant. They never heard that phrase. But whenever I explained it, then they're like, oh, yes, bingo, that is it. Here's the neurological science reason that happens. Are you ready for something really deep? Here's
Absolutely.
why it happens. Okay. If we think about human development and the way your brain forms and how we receive information by watching and hearing and modeling after what we see, everything that we learn at home. Most of it until the time we're about 7, we're just modeling. And we have a lot of innovations, because we're creative kids that just have these weird brain thoughts, and that's why they do lots of um, play-like things, a land of make-believe, and they tell
Right.
stories. They're not lying. They're making sense of things. But by the time they're 8 or 9, then they're really 7 or 8 or 9. Yeah, they're lying. And you can see a 2 or 3 year old lying too, but they don't know they're lying. They're just trying to make sense of things. Some of them are
Right.
trying to save their butts. But anyway, typically about age 7, you're just modeling after what you're seeing, you're hearing. And sometimes that's not just parents, it's other siblings, neighbors, TV. Okay, so we're modeling after what we see. Up until about age 18, from like 7 or 8 to 18, you're sort of trying to make sense of it, but it's still rooted pretty deeply in what you learned up until age 7. And you're still within these confines of your family, mostly, whether or not that's structured or not. You can live in a chaotic home and you still have confines, so to speak. But then you get out there on your own, and for however you have overcome that chaos, and everyone's mind, whether you were rich or poor or struggled or you learned structure or whatever, everyone's mind, your childhood was a challenge because we didn't get everything we wanted. And we grew up as part of a human being. It's all about us. Everybody's the hero of their own story, right? And especially as a child, it's me, me, me. That's mine, mine, mine. And you don't see other people as having needs. So you go all that time learning that. Not to mention you have another probably 30% that's just hardwired in through DNA. So you have these confines. So then by the time you get to a point where you're going to try to be a leader or make a change or accomplish a goal, you have this whole life behind you that was a certain way,
Mm.
telling you can't, or that's not you, or you weren't allowed to do that, or
So
you've never
true.
done that
Mhm.
before. And so the neuroscience behind that is you don't really have the neural pathway to do it until you start saying you can and you will. And so the little engine that could is so powerful. I know it's a childhood story, but it's so powerful because you cannot until you can see yourself doing it. Just like you mentioned earlier, even world-class athletes who get stuck. I'll just go with JJ Watt from the Houston Texans. World-class athlete, many times over, winner of all kinds of awards. And one time someone said, "You know what? Your fingers are wrong. You got to move your fingers and you'll be able to get off 2 seconds faster." Okay, he couldn't see that. He couldn't make that change by himself. Someone pointed it out. And then even after they pointed it out, he couldn't do it until he started doing it. So if we think about women and this imposter syndrome, we have to, number one, identify it. And number two, you don't have to spend that whole amount of time I just did explaining why. But the whole point is to jump forward and say, you know what? You wouldn't talk to your friend that way. Don't talk to my friend that way. Don't talk to yourself that way, because that inner critic, it's real. It is there, but it's like a bad boss trying to hold you down. And
Mhm.
so fire that boss and replace it with a good friend,
Right.
because you would never speak to your friends the way you speak to yourself.
Mhm.
And I've actually coined the phrase when I'm talking to these people, these ladies, and they're doing it out loud to me. I just stop them and say, "Quit talking about my friend like that."
Right.
And it's just a wake up call, and it's so sad because there is something that caused it. Now, I'm not one that goes back and tries to clear the past. I don't go backwards. I just say it is what it is, and we all have our baggage. But let's acknowledge it, thank the universe for it because it taught us to be resilient and to get where we are. Now leave it in the past. And let's prepare and move to the future of what we can do, because there are so many stories of people just, when they say put your mind to it, you can do anything you put your mind to it. There's a lot of strategy that goes into that. Prayer, meditation, visualization, um, wellness routines in the morning and
Mhm.
afternoon. Or evening. So what are the things? I mean, I actually teach people how to have a morning and evening routine. Some of them have never had a routine getting ready for bed at night.
Right.
And I don't give them a routine. I ask them questions and they come up with a routine. But that's part of a of getting your body ready to move forward and to know that you can make changes and you are successful. And these other little cobwebs here can totally be vacuumed out.
That is so true. I absolutely agree with all of that. I know I can attest to that because I used to be, a critique of myself. I would say exactly what you just said, Rhonda. So I totally agree until I had to change my mindset. I had to change, what I was doing because what you say and what you do is the actions then you take. And for me, that was not good because I was so critical of myself every time. And then my actions, I would procrastinate. I wouldn't do anything because although you will all have the potential, but because we hold ourselves back, because we don't
Yeah.
believe that we could.
Yeah. And if you can look at so many different kinds of leadership books or self-help or um, mental health books, and they all say the same thing related to what both of us just said is what are your thoughts? Then your thoughts create your beliefs.
Mhm.
What are your beliefs and your thoughts and then your actions? And if you can get yourself in those patterns and okay, acknowledge this thought, thank it, and then put it away and get your new thought and act on it and have a new belief, it literally rewires your brain. There are so many activities that can specifically help you do that.
Mhm.
So
100%.
whenever I find ladies who are in those predicaments, either with self-sabotage, any of those kinds of things, there are there's there are specific tools that we use to help them, and it's all around self-awareness. It's so interesting that you've mentioned that word a few times.
Right. What leadership trends or shifts do you see, Rhonda? Do you see in the next, like looking, forward into the horizon that women executives need to, foster and how they need to make that change in a male-dominated industry?
Well, I'm not going to talk about AI, even though that is huge and people need to get a handle on that. But I'm going to just go back to what I continually call alignment. And what is the alignment revolution? And whether they're male or female, whether their teammates are male or female, it's realizing there's good in everyone and opening your eyes to what are their gifts, whether that's through surveys or cute little questionnaires or just watching them. And we can't do that if we're pinned up in our office doing little tasks that somebody else could do. So I say I have this philosophy of the 3 hour workday. And when I first say that, people are like, yeah, 3 hour workday. Uh-huh. But that's not, you gotta be careful because what I'm talking about is I alluded to this earlier when I talked about blocks, clocks, and socks. Block off 3 hours during your day. It doesn't have to be consecutive. It can be, 45 minutes here, an hour here, whatever. But those times you block them off a month in advance and they're like sacred or holy or whatever. Now, obviously, you can break it if something else comes up that you need to. But what it does initially is it blocks off your calendar so nobody else can put something on your calendar for those times. It's already blocked. But those 3 hours during the day are the things that only you can do. And so when I talk about the alignment revolution, I want the leader, female leader, to have focus on those 3 hours of the task that only they can do. They're charged with visioning. They have some decisions that are solely on their shoulders. Um, you know, then they can come up with automations for emails and phone calls and work with their secretaries and different people like that, their coworkers and things like that. But the other, whatever, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 hours, whatever it is,
Huh?
they're out of their office. They're with other people. They're maybe in one of those weekly meetings, or maybe they're, out in the community doing things that need to be done as part of their role. But they're developing other people and doing those handoffs, looking for the strengths in others. When they see that they are aligned first with what their real role is, and then they find the strengths of others and help those folks align, it's going to make communication easier, workflows easier. They're going to get more done in less time. And as I had mentioned earlier about the COVID, the only good thing that did come from that is, okay, it's okay to talk about mental health issues now. A leader really needs to do that and be hyper vigilant. One thing I ask all leaders to do, I don't care if their organization has 6 people or 250 people, walk around and say hi to everybody. And I actually had someone say, I have 250 people. I can't go say hi to everybody. Why not? Do the people even know who you are? Do you know all your? No, I do not know all their names. Well, shame on you.
Mhm.
People need to feel seen and heard and valued, and not just like a little tool that you hired so you could get your work done and go home. Really, when you're out there, what do you see as a strength? When you just say, "Hey, Rhonda, how's it going today?" and they talk about something, you're going to notice that there's a pattern, or there's a pattern in their behavior. There's a pattern in the things they speak about. So what are the trends coming up for leadership? It seems like everything's going faster and faster and faster. And the technology, although it's supposed to be easier, 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 is presenting challenges. So what I advise is to bring that human side back with intention.
Mhm.
Know your people, speak to your people, know that they're not just your tools or your people. They are part of your team. And you rely on them for innovation and for automation and for they need to feel like they're contributing something bigger than themselves, and you need to recognize that they are contributing to something bigger that's helping you.
Exactly. Valued. Everybody wants to feel valued, and your employees have to feel valued because you're building the culture, and the culture starts from from the top to the bottom, but developing that culture so that people, your employees, they feel valued, they feel part of the culture, and also community. When as a leader you build that sense of community, I think it goes just a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Rhonda, this has been such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people connect with you, and how can we support you best?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Alka. I really appreciate your time and allowing me to be here with y'all. So people can find me on the web at rhondaparmer.com. Be careful, it is Rhonda Parmer that rhymes with farmer, because there are some weirdo things out there. So it's rhondaparmer.com. And on LinkedIn, Rhonda Freeman Parmer. And that's where I put a lot of just information that's helpful, blogs and things like that that are helpful. And one thing that we have going right now is this 5-day leadership challenge. And it is not a bunch of work. It's not a bunch of more things to do. It's just a 5-day leadership challenge. It comes in your email. So they can sign up for that on my website. And it's just quick tips to remind them to keep the human aspect there, where they're aligning their people so they can align the processes so they can get more done and go home on time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rhonda. That was so powerful, and really enjoyed this top of the hour. We've come to the top of the hour, but we just had an amazing conversation. Thank you so much to each and every one for joining us today with the amazing, remarkable leader, Rhonda Palmer. And she shared insights on having the 3 decades of experience as an associate superintendent principal in the public education sector. And also, she's shared insights as to how we can empower both educators, students, and communities alike. I hope you enjoyed this powerful conversation, and also remember to make a difference by inspiring yourselves to thrive every day and to making a difference, because one step of making a difference can truly go a long way, both for individuals and teams. Until next time, we will see you on the next episode of Ask the Experts. Bye for now. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Really appreciate your time
Great.
today.